I know that I have no business being vegetarian. I actually am of the metabolic type that dense nucleic acids or meat, particularly organ meat. I mean, I shouldn't be having like haggis for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I got no business being a vegetarian whatsoever, because that is my body's preferential fuel. It is for a lot of people, actually. We're just conditioned to fuel it with sugar base instead of protein base. Because I got to tell you, I've taught at university, and there are graduate students come in and still believe that sugar is the fuel that the body runs on. That even if you do have protein, the only way that it can be used as fuel is if it's converted over into sugar. Now that's one pathway, but that's a totally inefficient pathway. Actually, if you remember from high school science, there was something called the mitochondria. Remember the powerhouse of the cell?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the powerhouse of the cell is the most efficient fuel system in your body. Glycolysis, which happens outside of the nucleus, outside of the organelles, in the cytoplasm, in the goop, that's where sugar is turned into fuel. That's glycolysis, is our emergency system for getting energy. It's not our primary system, it's our emergency fuel, because it can run without oxygen. It's there, so if we're running for our lives and fighting for our lives and we can't get enough oxygen into our lungs to burn for fuel, we've got a reserve. We've got a reserve of fuel in order to do that, and that's what glycolysis is there for. But at some point, we started relying more heavily on the mitochondria. That's a whole nother story. But we started relying on the mitochondria, and their primary fuel is protein and saturated fat. So they run on fat and protein, and they are much more efficient at delivering energy pound for pound than the glycolysis, the sugar metabolism ever is. So the interesting thing is, when we load our diet with grain-based, and this has been going on now for nearly 75 years, where saturated fats are the enemy. Never were. It's based on bad science. Saturated fats are probably the best thing you can do for your heart, for your brain, for your immune system. And you start really loading the whole system, the whole dietary nutritional system on carbs, different kinds of grain-based carbs, and carbs, you actually create the emergency physiology response in your body, because that's what it's there for.
Interesting.
Yeah, burning sugar is the emergency system in your body. So if you only feed your body sugar, your body goes into emergency response.
Yeah.
And that shuts down your immune system. That compromises all the chemistry in your body. It all goes over into that fight or flight mechanism that is fueled by sugar.
It's fascinating.
So here we are, a society that is almost exclusively carbohydrate based now. You know, there's the paleo people who, you know, are getting back to simpler, less complex, more meat and stuff. And, you know, there's
seeds and nuts and
yeah, there's some validity to that, and there's some holes in it, just like anything else. But the bottom line is, it makes a lot of sense to simplify it. If you read a label, if you even bother taking the time to read a label, and there's something on there that you can't read, that you can't pronounce, your body's not going to be able to put it to good use. It's almost a guarantee. So simple foods that were available for our grandparents, you know, maybe a max of 10 ingredients at a time. Even that is going to put some challenges on the system. And don't be afraid of saturated fat. Don't be afraid of carbohydrate. Don't be afraid of protein. As long as it's in its simple form, your body's going to be able to do something with it. And as long as you're not predominantly only sticking with one type of food, you're going to have less stress in your life. Literally. Starting with food, it's the easiest thing you can change. Instead of relying on, I don't even want to get into it. We take more drugs in this country than everyone else combined. And if that were an answer, if that were really a good strategy, there wouldn't be 36 countries doing a better job at keeping their population healthy than we